I'm Dr. Manuel Astruc. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist. I help entrepreneurs who are suffering from depression get back to being energetic, productive, and very confident. I rarely have people who are coming into my office who are just like really dying to take a medication. Like everybody wants to feel better, but most people want to know what they can possibly do to avoid taking a medication. So I want to talk a little bit about how to think about alternative treatments for depression, anxiety, burnout, so that you have some options. Years ago, I gave talks on alternative medical treatments. And the biggest overview, the biggest takeaway for me is that there are so many alternatives, and what you really want to be looking at is safety. Like if you don't want to be under the care of a psychiatrist or a physician and take medications and you're going to do alternative treatments, make sure that they're safe. And there's a lot of controversy that I hear from people when they're talking about antidepressants and psychiatric medications and alternative treatments. I was doing a radio interview last year, and I was talking about psychiatric treatments, and there was some Q&A with the audience, and there was one gentleman who called who really wanted to talk about how come in psychiatry we're suppressing the fact that there are safe alternatives that are just as effective. And he was talking about things like, vitamin B and B6 and B12 and he was really kind of pushing that the pharmaceutical industry and the psychiatric industry have come up with this way to take people's money and give them medications that have risks and side effects and costs when there's very low-hanging fruit that he says are just as effective. Now, is it true that the pharmaceutical industry, they make money by selling medications and developing medications? Like, there's no doubt about that. And they haven't always been as open and honest with their research as they could have been. But, when all is said and done, this is the best science that we have, and what's studied the most robustly with randomized controls, scientific trials, in order to show that there's improvement with treatment with medications. That being said, one of the most important things that you can keep in mind is that in any of these studies that are controlled trials, so we have people who are being given active treatment and people who are given placebo treatment. Even the individuals who are given placebo treatment have a bump up in terms of improvement of their depressive symptoms. So there's a well-known event that happens that even placebo treatment is more effective than nothing. Doesn't mean that psychiatric treatment isn't effective. So first, let's talk about non-medication or over-the-counter medication supplements. This is going to be stuff like bodywork. One of the best studied add-ons, augmentation strategies to treat depression and anxiety is actually exercise. And with exercise, you can be talking about anything ranging from, walking to jogging, Tai Chi. You can talk about yoga, stuff that includes, a component of community a lot of times, mindfulness and breath work a lot of times. But all of these physical modalities have had some evidence for benefit in depression. Now, what's the challenge? The challenge is that one of the symptoms of depression is that you don't want to do anything, right? You're exhausted and you're lacking interest and motivation, and people are just like, I wish I had the energy to go out and exercise. I wish I had the energy and the ability to go out and get back to my yoga studio. It's really hard to when you have a rip-roaring depression going on to be able to make use of these modalities. Using a buddy system, getting support and help from others can be helpful, and latching on to the power of your community to help you with that. But that's probably one of the best studied, very safe, very effective ways to have an alternative to medications for depression. That being said, a very severe depression is probably not going to improve just on the basis of exercise alone. There's body work modalities that have less of the science behind them, and this probably would be controversy because the practitioners for these modalities would tell me that they've got, number one, their personal experience that these modalities work with their patients, and number two, they probably got their own studies to support their use. So these include things like chiropractic care, acupuncture, craniosacral therapies. I have zero problems, and I'm incredibly supportive of any patient who has the desire, want, motivation, interest in exploring these, because I don't think that they're dangerous. It's not going to hurt you. I'm just not convinced that there's enough research to show that there's a robust benefit from them, but they're not dangerous. Body work that starts to get a little bit more fringy includes things like cryotherapy. So you've probably seen pictures or heard of these places in the Silicon Valley. Tony Robbins talks about this, but cryotherapy involves putting yourself into a chamber where you're exposed to incredibly cold nitrogen that is ridiculously cold. And there's some talk about that being helpful for inflammation, for depression, for your general well-being and stress reduction. I think that the data is out, and these modalities start to get a little bit more fringy, and I start to get a little bit more concerned about potential danger. Another modality that people talk about, and I think that this is okay to explore, but in terms of helping with depression, I'm not sure that I would advocate for this, are sensory deprivation chambers. So there's some around here in the capital region. I think for people who have an interest in exploring kind of mindfulness and things of that nature, it can be helpful. For that, I'm not sure it's something that I would advocate for someone who's depressed. Levels of anxiety and distress can be kind of high in those modalities. And just to loop back to the body, there's also the brain part of the body, right? So things like meditation, they've been used for years, and I am gung-ho that meditation is a practice that just about everybody can get some benefits from. So let's talk about over-the-counter supplements. There is a host of over-the-counter supplements, and my biggest concerns with them is that there's some of them that can be potentially dangerous. So it's almost a buyer beware. You've got to really know what you're getting and take a look at it, run it by your doctors. but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry to be able to get online a supplement of some sort that's going to help you with your mood, your energy, and most of these supplements have not been validated or regulated in terms of effectiveness. So buyer beware with those. I was talking to an entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley. He runs a big financial services business for very, very high-end individuals. And we were talking about entrepreneurs and the sorts of things they have access to that they're doing in the Silicon Valley to help with anxiety, depression, performance. And these are things like, the psychedelics. We have a lot of research that's currently underway to look at the effectiveness of, things like magic mushrooms, MDMA, and I believe that these are going to be found to be effective, but they're not approved yet. In the Silicon Valley, they've jumped on these, and microdosing LSD, microdosing magic mushrooms, the ability to get ketamine or MDMA is out there for these individuals, and I think the data is going to be out there at some point to support it. It's not there yet, but it's one of the big things that those kind of leading edge entrepreneurs are talking about. The last thing to talk about is, transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. So TMS is an FDA-approved treatment for depression that has been around for well over 10 years, and it's just starting to hit the area. But TMS is definitely safe. It's been shown to be effective in the most difficult to treat individuals who have failed to respond to everything. And for individuals who are not at the end of the rope, but have the ability and the desire to avoid taking psychiatric medications or don't want to go through the strategies that we have to use when someone's not responding to medications, TMS, earlier in treatment, is something that I am a big proponent of.